All right. Thank you all for coming. I want to begin this press conference by being thankful to God for giving us a perseverance and the grace and the fortitude to withstand another very difficult time in South Louisiana. So many of us for so much time have been through so many things, from the aftermath of the terrorist attacks on September 11th when our tourism industry went down, to Katrina, Rita, Ike, Gustav, the national recession, the BP oil spill, threats that have come our way in many, many different ways, and now this hurricane, which quite frankly we thought was going to go someplace else. But as many people have shown time and time again, when you have to, you take what's coming your way and you work together and you do the best that you can for your friends and your family, and you get past whatever it is that is brought to us. I said this after Katrina, and I'm more certain of it now, that storms reveal our true character. They reflect what you are, both good and bad. And not surprisingly, the people of New Orleans and the people of southern Louisiana revealed their character once again, and the rest of the country stands amazed at the resilience. For those of us that weren't harmed very much, to those of us that lost our houses, and we have first responders who lost their houses. We have people that lost most of everything that they owned. We have friends and neighbors in St. John Parish and Plaquemines Parish that lost their lives. And so this storm has brought us the same kind of tragedy, but as so many of us have seen, out of tragedy comes the better angels among us. And they came out again. And there will be many stories of that as we move on. Secondly, I want to thank President Obama. I have said many times during this event that his office was on the phone with us before this storm hit, and that I was in touch with the White House every day, either talking to a staff person for the President, the Vice President, or the President himself. Secretary Napolitano was on the phone with us. FEMA was on the phone with us, and they have been down here since that time, and Craig Fugate, who's the head of FEMA, has been embedded on the ground in the southern part of the country since that time. Governor Jindal's office has been and continues to be a great partner. As you know, Paul Rainwater was embedded with us. Andy Copland brought great experience from the state of Louisiana before he came here, and that link between Andy and Paul helped solidify the coordination between the state and local. The coordination on the federal, state, and local level, at least in my short experience over the past or so years, was as good as it has ever been. So I want to thank all of those. I also want to just take a moment, because I have not had a chance to do this yet, to thank my deputy mayors. Andy Copland, who is the deputy mayor and chief administrative officer; Judy Reese-Morse, who is a deputy mayor and chief of staff; Cedric, who is a deputy mayor for infrastructure; Cedric Grant; Michelle Thomas, the deputy mayor for operations; Mr. Jerry Sneed, who is a deputy mayor for public safety and oversees homeland security; and Deputy Mayor Emily Arad, our head of intergovernmental affairs and communication, have been here nonstop, as have all of their staffs. Many of these people slept here and did not leave. They slept on cots. They did not see their families for a long period of time. And there's so many people in this building that have sacrificed so much. It is so often said that those people on the front lines, if they know their family's all right, will make great sacrifices. And this team, as well as many other people and first responders, made what I consider to be a tremendous sacrifice to make sure that the people of New Orleans were safe. And I want to thank all of you for the incredible work that you have done. You have shown, again, that we are one team, one fight, one voice, one city, as well as all of the staff members who always are behind the scenes and never, ever get recognized. I assure you, they did tremendous work. As many of you know, last Tuesday on August 28th, 8 days ago now, Isaac was a slow-moving and unpredictable storm. It is the most unpredictable storm that we have seen, I believe, in our lifetime, dating back in my short life to Betsy. Though it was a Category 1 hurricane, it sat over us for over 50 hours. To my knowledge, that hasn't happened before in this area. It dumped up to 21.6 inches of rain over several days. The highest gusts were 76 at Lakefront Airport with the sustained winds of 60 miles an hour throughout the city. But because it stayed long, it caused us lots of problems. Here's the good news and the big picture. The $14.5 billion federal levee system that the United States of America built to protect this nation's energy coast and to produce energy security and national security for the United States of America held. The residents largely heeded our warnings. We're going to get out of the storm without loss of life or significant injury in Orleans. And the power has been restored to date at this time to 99%. The bad news is that we still have some families without power. Resources are strained, and this cleanup, which is the next phase, is going to take some time. Hundreds of public employees and contractors are now fully engaged in the massive cleanup on the trek back to our normalcy. I want to thank this team for their work and their dedications. We have a long recovery left for our friends outside of the levee protection in New Orleans, and so I want to speak about that in a minute. To our friends in Venetian Isles, in Lake Catherine, the Irish Bayou, Fort Pike, our efforts will be focused there. I have tasked my Chief of Staff and Deputy Mayor Judy Reese-Morse and Brooke Smith with overseeing this operation. Both the Chief, Surpass, Chief Parent, and I toured out there on last Thursday when the winds were howling, the rain was falling, and the water was still 3 feet high. We were able to get into Venetian Isles. We were able to talk to the head of the neighborhood organization and many other residents who were stranded and ask them what it is that they needed. We then sent out a Tiger team to deal with that issue. We have a team that's been dedicated to seeing that these folks have the resources they need to rebuild, and we intend to stay there until that is done. As I have said, we have been in touch constantly with Robbie Connect from Venetian Isles, Chief Matthews of the New Orleans Fire Department, firefighter Richard Veazey of Engine 33, who is helping even though the roof was partially torn off of his home. Mr. Gene Baruch, who I've made the honorary mayor of Irish Bayou, has been a dear friend. Chief Chuck Smoltz of the Fort Pike Volunteer Department made his son the honorary mayor of Lake Catherine, and Ms. Carol Giardina, who is the head of the Homeowners Association in Lake Catherine, have all been in touch with us and are going to be the point people for those respective organizations. We've sent 15 soldiers from the National Guard, 6 front-end loaders, and 2 backhoes to clear the debris and bayou sludge. They made a lot of progress in the last 2 days. The roads and the streets are now passable, and Entergy has restored power to a majority of this area, including Venetian Isles, Irish Bayou, and Lake Catherine. Offering supplies at the pod are still there at the old firehouse. FEMA and SBA have set up a mobile disaster recovery center at new Engine 31 on Chef Highway, and the National Guard is providing enhanced security. Still, we have resources that are available for other people in the city who are in need. We have an emergency cooling shelter still open at St. Bernard in Gentilly at 1500 Lafreniere Street. We have a pod set up at this moment in time. Water, ice, and MRE and tarps are still being distributed out at Venetian Isles. The other pods have been pulled down. The FEMA Mobile Disaster Recovery Center and SBA resources are still there, and disaster food stamps, which you can pick up by last name, are starting today at UNO Arena. The schedule can be found online or by calling 311. Still, I want to say to the people, although we're moving back into normalcy, there continue to be hazards, especially on the roads. We had 235 accidents last week. We still have about 10% of our traffic lights still out. I'm urging you to be patient, use common sense and caution. Treat every intersection without a signal like it's a four-way stop. Don't roll through them. That's not a four-way stop. Stop means stop completely, and then look and then go. Be especially careful in rush hour. Yesterday afternoon, when one of our substations went down, it caused a traffic jam that was not to be believed in downtown when everybody was trying to get home. We tried to deploy police officers for traffic, but until we get out there, everybody can manage their way, and we will continue to do that. The National Guard will help us do traffic guidance at some of the signals that are out. We had a number of fires during the storm. We want to make sure that we don't have any more of those, so please be vigilant. All right, the cleanup right now is in full swing. Deputy Mayor Michelle Thomas, as the Chief of Operations, is the point on this. This is a massive effort. At peak, over 501 employees and contractors from Parkway, Sanitation, Sewage and Water Board, National Guard, Richards, Metro, IESI, DRC, and Downtown Development District are on the street as we speak. All major thoroughfares are passable. We're focused on interior streets and parks. Parkways is focused on securing and trimming what we call leaners and hangers, which pose public safety threats. A lot of folks are unaware of this, but in those beautiful trees, some of those have been dislodged, and we're trying to make sure that they don't fall on anybody or fall on another line that's going to cause another outlet. The first pass of Isaac debris removal will be complete by the end of this week. We're on a regular trash pickup schedule, but we are a day to a day and a half behind because of the huge volume that exists. Leave it there. We will pick it up. We're coming to get it, so please leave it out. If you have large debris caused by flooding, set it next to your trash cans curbside. Debris should not go in black trash bags, only garbage. Through yesterday alone, we had collected and hauled over 9,449 cubic yards of debris to the landfill. We have 50 debris crews back in the field today. We have also demolished 24 properties that either collapsed or were in imminent danger of collapse. NORA has inspected its property and will be demolishing another 78 properties due to damage and imminent danger. We're also going to focus on mosquitoes and rodents, so I ask you to please empty any containers that have stagnant water where mosquitoes can breed. The Mosquito Control Board began spraying yesterday, which is an ideal time for them to begin that because of breeding time. And I want to thank you for your patience as we clean up the city. It's going to take us some time, but we will finish as soon as we possibly can. Hurricane Isaac, just to give you a sense of the numbers and a way to gauge what we just went through, over 3,000 public employees and contractors engaged in Orleans alone. From a public safety perspective, I want to thank Chief Surpass. The new NOPD, I think you will agree with me, did an exemplary job of maintaining order in the city of New Orleans. Chief, thank you very much. We had 1,100 NOPD officers and up to 1,400 National Guard soldiers with us. Every NOPD officer reported for duty. We made 41 looting arrests. Went from the morning of Monday, August 27th to last night without a murder. Unfortunately, it began again last night. The Louisiana National Guard, Colonel Thibodeau and Colonel Donnelly have done an outstanding job. They helped with public safety patrols and cleanup. They organized 6 pod locations. They served 1.4 million bottles of water, 210,000 bags of ice, 938,000 MREs, 28,000 tarps were distributed, and the National Guard estimated that they served a total of 849,000 people in the city of New Orleans. That's what I call work. Colonel, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Chief Parent and the Fire Department, another group of folks that just above and beyond the call of duty averaged 245 firefighters on duty per day, 24 working fires over one weekend time period alone. That's almost 4 times the normal number of fires during a 1 week period. 2 working fires were from candles and 2 were from generators. As I said at a previous press conference, the New Orleans Fire Department rescued 7 people from Venetian Isles. Don't forget the Bulldog. They staffed 3 different emergency cooling shelters, and they served 78 residents since last week. Dr. Elder and EMS were out there pulling really hard. 137 full and part-time medics were on duty around the clock. 53 total ambulances were used. Of that, they had assistance of 30 state ambulances, were a huge help. They responded to 1,809 calls for service. 16 patients were transported for carbon monoxide issues, and they actually delivered a baby in an ambulance on the way to the hospital. Dr. Elder should run for governor. Dr. DeSalvo and the health department did a spectacular job. They worked with all the hospitals and nursing homes in New Orleans. We have 5 Tier 1 hospitals. We have 3 Tier 2 hospitals and 17 private nursing homes. We also visited the high-rises and the independent living. Her team went door to door in these high-rise assisted living complexes like Gust and knocked on every door to make sure that every one of our elderly were okay. So I thank them for that. They also, with the assistance of state and federal government, stood up the Medical Special Needs Center at the Convention Center. And for those of you that went, you saw how spectacular an operation was. Our DMAT team from the federal government said it was the best that they had seen in the country. We closed it earlier today. They served over 143 patients and caregivers. It was staffed by 97 federal DMAT staff from as far away as Virginia. We transported 12 patients back and forth to dialysis centers while we were there, and they facilitated a shelter for 1,058 homeless people in 7 shelters. They did a great job. Marcia St. Martin at the Sewage and Water Board, 345 employees will operate in the system. The call center answered 1,279 calls. The 24 drainage pumps worked like they were expected to. We expect, however, unfortunately, we have about $70 million in damage to some Sewage and Water Board properties, and we have some more to our capital infrastructure in the city. The levee boards east and west were great. Over 150 employees logged over 11,000 man-hours. They closed 264 gates. Then they reopened them. The system, again, performed as it was designed. In public works, we have 460 signalized intersections in the city of New Orleans. At this time, all of them now have power, but 247 have damage, 73 of which were blown down. Repairs started as early as Thursday. 204 of those 247 have been repaired to date. So we're working to complete all of these repairs by close of business on Friday. As far as street lights, there are over 54,000 total in the city. We had approximately 7,000 out before the storm that we were fixing before the end of the year. We picked up 76 knockdown poles already, and it'll be several more weeks before we know the full extent of this damage. As drainage and catch basins, the crews have cleared out 140 heavily clogged catch basins, cleaned out 16,580 feet of drain line, and we have deployed all 3 vacuum trucks that will be on duty until they finish. We have approximately 150,000 traffic control and street name signs in the city. 337 sign repairs have been completed already. Our first priority is to safety-related signage, that is stop signs, one-way signs, turn signs, and yield signs, and then we're going to move to street name signs. Capital projects, Deputy Mayor Grant has been doing a great job leading this effort. He had 46 employees working around the clock. They did assessments to 225 construction sites already. We anticipate at least $5 to $10 million of damage at a minimum just for those capital sites. Some buildings with more damage are rain in the New Orleans Museum of Art. No art got damaged, to my knowledge. Criminal court and traffic court have sustained some roof damage as well. The high mast lighting at some of the parks and playgrounds have been damaged. We are fixing it. Unfortunately, the brand new fence at Wesley Barrow that we were going to dedicate last week got blown down. So we're going to put it back up. And we'll dedicate that wonderful facility that all of the council worked on with us, and I thank them for that. That is a great partnership that we have with Major League Baseball. The economic development team got to work right away. They started making calls to local businesses on Monday. Amy Quirk's team is on it. On Wednesday afternoon, they focused on outreach to businesses that were critical to the recovery: grocery stores, pharmacies, gas stations, and home repairs. This was critical. It helped us relieve the pressure on the pods. Groups like Rouse's, Home Depot, Walmart, the Lowe's, all of those guys got down here. They called. They said, what can we do? We said, get down here, open up, have your redundancy generators working, and they did a spectacular job. They also have monitored business activity of more than 100 businesses and published updates, lists of openings to the EOC on ready.nola.gov and 311. As it relates to FEMA, I told you our federal friends were on the ground. Mike Burns, Andre Cardigan, and John Connolly, as well as some other folks from across the country, are embedded upstairs with us at the direction of Craig FEMA, who's the head of FEMA, who is in the area. 35,599 Orleans Parish residents have already registered for assistance. They have granted $862,000 in housing assistance, $282,000 other needs assistance to date. And we know the state is expected to serve over 100,000 people in Orleans Parish with food stamps out at UNO as we speak. As it relates to information to the public, I want to give a big shout-out to Ryan Burney and his team, and Sarah Hudson and that team, and also the Public Information Officer for the City Council. They did a great job. 311 were really our eyes and ears. For those of you that were not aware of this, we had 311 operating. We had operators in there 24/7. Folks were sleeping there. They stayed around the clock. They were our eyes and ears about what was happening around the city, and the people around the city did a great job calling in. Everybody, for the most part, heeded our recommendation for major, life-threatening calls to 911 and other calls to 311. More than 29,000 calls have come into the city that they fielded since last Monday. 34 full-time call agents and ITI staff, approximately a dozen volunteers, and they fielded hundreds of interview requests. At peak, there was 27,000 unique hits to external daily views on ready.nola.gov, which evidently worked very well this storm. we registered an additional 1,500 residents for CAEP. Over 1,500 tweets from at Nola Reddy and at Mayor Landrieu. Press conferences were viewed by 16,000 individuals. Dozens of posts on Facebook and YouTube. Social media was really big for us during this storm and really helped us figure out what was going on fast so that we could close the link between theory and practice on the ground. We have had, as many of you can see and are probably tired of, 10 press conferences and media avails, and 36 press releases were issued. Finally, I want to give another shout out to Jerry Sneed, who ran the operation upstairs. Those folks have been there around the clock, 24/7. We just got off of a 24-hour rotation last night. We'll be on a 7-to-7 rotation on an as-needed basis until we get the city completely cleaned up. So finally, let me just end with a couple of other general points about lessons learned. It really is important that all of us think about this. I would generally say that this went so well because the citizens did an incredible job having a plan, following their plan, and paying attention to the best information that we could give them. That is what drives the success or the failure of these particular events. And so I think that was really good here. We still have some issues with public and private critical facilities, the kind that do not have, in my opinion, the kind of backup and redundant power necessary. We still see this problem in nursing homes and hospitals. These are private organizations, and if they don't have backup generators, it puts a huge amount of stress on us getting EMS out there at very, very difficult times. So I would just kind of, I'm going to want to talk about that more. Grocery stores and gas stations need to have backup power sources. It really is a matter of dollars and cents, but it's really good business, and it helps the city get stood back up. Lastly, communication is key, especially in stuff like electricity, trash pickup, and other basic necessities. I want to commend the council for their hearing yesterday. I thought it went very, very well. I thought the right questions were asked. I thought Entergy did as well as they could answering the questions yesterday, but I think opening up the docket was a very positive thing to do. And I think that one of the things we want to do here on Entergy and a lot of other things is after-action reviews that we can all do better. Certainly, Melanie, you and I have been working together, and we will continue to do so. But communication in these instances is always the key. Clear, concise, often communication to try to help people answer questions, because rumors will fly. And once they start flying, they're hard to undo, and I think the public has a right to know that. On cooperation and coordination, this team has been here around the clock. We've had daily EOC meetings on a 24/7 schedule. The coordination has been really, really good. There are hiccups in the systems all the time, so sometimes, as we say, these are relays, and you got to make sure somebody has the handoff before you let the baton go, and we're going to clean that up. We are moving back to normalcy. Now the city of New Orleans is open and back for business. We had a major convention in town this weekend with Decadence. We had over 100,000 people in the city. The tourism industry folks, all of the public safety folks did a great job getting everybody where they needed to be, and I trust that our guests had a wonderful time. By now, almost all stores and businesses are back open. City government and schools are back and operating. Our construction crews are back out in the street working, including in the French Quarter, Lower 9, and New Orleans East. RTA bus service is at 100%, and the streetcar service is returning. The airport and most attractions are open. Hotels reached 98% capacity this past weekend. And today, we're going to begin normal parking and traffic enforcement throughout the city. In closing, we will focus our remaining energy in the coming days on cleaning up, on assisting our friends who are outside of the levee protection, and assisting our neighbor in St. John in Plaquemine Parish, some of whom work in Orleans Parish and whose houses are still underwater. Just as a cautionary note, we still have a long way to go in hurricane season. I know for people who are watching, there are a number of things happening out there in the Gulf that may turn into something or they may not. But let's not be foolish here, and let's just kind of take a breath for a minute and then get ready for what may come our way and hope that we can pray it away. So make your plan, clean out your catch basin, sign up with the City Assisted Evacuation and text alerts at ready.nola.gov, or again by calling 311. I also want to finally thank so many of the private businesses, and particularly the faith-based and not-for-profit organizations, all of whom we would not be able to do our work. Evacuteer.org was spectacular. As a young lady said from the American Red Cross, who's been upstairs forever, she's living the dream, which is a wonderful thing to hear from somebody who's sacrificing so much. They have been great. The Salvation Army, The Dryads YMCA opened up a shelter at a moment's notice, and so many pastors have reached out to help serve food to some of our most distressed communities. They've been a great organization. Tyrone Walker from my office has reached out to all those pastors, and they worked very, very closely with us. Again, this was an all-hands-on-deck effort from public to private, city departments and agencies, to Entergy, to Cox, to hotels and restaurants. And finally, for those people that are frustrated with Entergy, I would just say this as it relates to what's going on right now. That frustration is understandable, but please do not take it out on the linemen. So many of those men have been away from their families for 30 days, crisscrossing this nation, dealing with outages from Florida all the way to the Gulf South. I personally spoke to many of them that have not been home in 30 days. Some of them were on the road for 2 weeks. They were from as far away as Alaska, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Tell them thank you, if you don't mind. It would help a lot, especially if this happens again. Remember, we want them to come back. We will deal with the issues of sustainability and reliability as it relates to electricity, emergency operation responses at the proper time. The council started that process yesterday, and we will all get better because we all have a lot of improving to do, including yours truly. So again, thank you all so much, and most importantly, thank the citizens of New Orleans for the incredible amount of work, and thank all of you who are in this room and those who have not been recognized for all the incredible work that you do. There is nothing that we can do if we are one team, one fight, one voice, one city. So I thank you very much. I'd like to turn over to Colonel Sneed, and then the other speakers will follow.
I got bumped by the first deputy mayor.
Mr. Mayor, no problem. I want to first thank you, Mr. Mayor, on behalf of all of our colleagues for your leadership as our Commander-in-Chief. Your direction to us has been crystal clear at all times. It's also my honor and privilege to say thank you to our city's workforce across every department, from 311 to 911 to Park and Parkways, sanitation, property management, DPW, finance, and many, many others, and to our first responders at police, fire, EMS, Homeland Security, and health. They all showed up. They worked 24/7 as necessary, without complaint. They went above and beyond. They did whatever it took for as long as it took, and many are still hard at work right now, bring your city back. So we left our families to serve our community, and our public employees performed beautifully and have earned the thanks and gratitude of all of us and the people of our city. So thank you to all of our city employees. The frontline folks are unheralded, but they rose to the occasion as they always do for the citizens of the city. Thank you.
As Andy said, we've got a lot of people that's done a lot of work for the last week. We've had approximately 2,000 city employees doing 24-hour operations. It hadn't been perfect, but there's been a lot of hard work. It hadn't been due to lack of effort that we've made a few mistakes, but it's been our honor to serve this city, our citizens. I know I'm very proud of the people I saw work, and I think our citizens should be proud as we move to the next phase of recovery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of the fire department, I'd like to thank all the men and women out there that sacrificed and worked so hard. We had an average of 245 fireless on duty on a 24-hour basis throughout this ordeal. We had 30 pumpers, 10 ladder trucks, 3 technical rescue squads in service that were able to respond throughout the storm, no matter how high the wind got. I was so very proud to see our firefighters at shelters, pods, delivering ice and water to people in the neighborhood with a good attitude and respect for the people that suffered out here. And I'd also like to thank the families of those firefighters who stood behind them throughout this ordeal and supported them. They are our heroes. And I'd like to congratulate Captain Travis Stutson, who became a new father last week. Him and his wife gave birth. And I'd also like to congratulate Captain Jared Brody, whose wife is in labor right now. Job well done.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Clearly, I am incredibly proud of the New Orleans Police Department. During this period of time, During that week, we responded to over 12,000 calls for service while we continued to be aggressive in our patrol and our activities in the neighborhoods. I cannot tell you what a pleasure and a professional privilege it is to work with Colonel Thibodeau and Colonel Donnelly. During the entire deployment of Lang, every question was, what can we do to help? Where can we go to help? What we can do to make a difference for New Orleans. And I want to make sure that both the colonels understand how much I appreciate that, and everybody in the state government should know that. The men and women of the police department are clearly supported by their families and we must thank them. 2 quick points. In the state of Louisiana and the city of New Orleans, under normal times, if you're in an accident and you are not injured and you can move the cars, move them. Get them out of the traffic lanes so the rest of us can do the work we need to do. But let me tell you what I'm incredibly proud of. Mayor Landrieu and I wanted you to meet Detective Clay. Detective Clay, on the first night of the storm, was working in the 6th District in the area of 7th and Daniel. And while working, Detective Clay led fellow police officers into the arrest of 4 men who looted a business at 7th and Daniel. And I can assure you, Mr. District Attorney, that Detective Clay is anxious to testify. As you remind us always, she's anxious to stay with you through the prosecution. And 3 of those particular fellows were already on probation for either carrying a concealed weapon, breaking into somebody else's home already, or for using a car that they had stolen. And I want to tell you, Detective Clay is the face of the New Orleans Police Department, on task, on time, in the middle of the storm, making you, your family, and your businesses safe. So thank you, Detective Clay. Now we get out the way. We go right.
The Louisiana Guard has the luxury of being a supporting agency, and as I was sitting here listening to all the accomplishments, I kind of thought about my personal status. I've got 29 years with the United States Army and 21 years with the U.S. Department of Justice here in New Orleans as a U.S. Marshal, Deputy U.S. Marshal, and it was one of the most impressive, well-prepared operations that I've ever been a part of. We've had the opportunity to work with multiple different agencies. We work across the entire spectrum. And as we went through this, I'd like to send a particular thanks to the New Orleans Police Department, the New Orleans Fire Department, and the New Orleans EMS system. The 3 most professional agencies I personally have ever worked with. And it was something to see out there, seeing from the inside and seeing people just moving and going through the process. So although I hope we don't have another hurricane, but if we do, I guarantee you that people of the city of New Orleans can be well assured that these agencies and this team is going to be prepared. I also guarantee you we'll be right here with you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mayor, for your leadership. And just to report on OPP, we transported 1,057 inmates. They're all back with the exception of 2 that stayed up for some dialysis treatment. We had 9 buses that we used and 18 buses from the Department of Corrections. We began our return on Friday. Our power was restored on Thursday, and we completed the return on Saturday. Our intake center remained open throughout the storm, although it did slow down a little bit, and we did get those orange suits for those guys. But we're back to normal. We did have some damage to our administrative building, but other than that, we're fully staffed and operational. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also would like to commend you for the job that you did for the city of New Orleans during this past week. I would also like to thank Chief Serpez for the law enforcement presence that existed in Orleans Parish during this ordeal. The effect of that law enforcement presence, as you heard, was the arrest of over 40 people for looting in the last week in the city of New Orleans. I pledge to this community that we will aggressively pursue those individuals who were responsible for looting the businesses and taking advantage of people in their times of distress. The only other thing I would like to bring to everyone's attention in this community is that, unfortunately, as we recall, when our last crisis appeared after Katrina, there were a number of people who came into the city of New Orleans under the auspices or the guise of trying to repair homes and help people get their lives back in order, and took advantage of those individuals also. We will buttress our contractor fraud division in the office, and we will, again, aggressively prosecute those people who come down here and do attempt to take advantage of our citizens, again, in their times of distress. So, again, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Not after me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to begin by thanking the EMTs and paramedics of New Orleans EMS. They responded to over 1,800 calls for service during this time period. Additionally, I'd like to thank our state mutual aid resources that were tasked to assist New Orleans. These units responded to 362 emergency calls for service. In addition, they did over 120 non-emergent shelter type related transports during around the storm. Of course, we had one that delivered a baby. I don't believe the baby boy was named Isaac, as the mayor suggested, but we'll follow up. Additionally, I'd really like to thank our field EMS supervisors and night and day crews. They worked through the wind and the rain to transport critical patients during the inclement weather. Throughout the leading up to and the landfall of Isaac. This allowed us to quickly catch up with the call backlog Wednesday morning when it was safe to resume EMS responses in the field. Finally, I'd like to thank Dr. Elizabeth Clement with LSU Emergency Medicine. Dr. Clement volunteered her entire week to work with EMS. She gave us medical control in the field for our medics, doing a tremendous job during this event. Thank you.
First, I want to thank the healthcare system for heeding the lessons learned in Hurricane Katrina and Gustav and actually preparing itself to be much more hardened, also having better communications, better redundancy, and working a lot more collaboratively to help each other when some of the system became stressed. And I want to thank, as the mayor did, community members for themselves being more prepared, having sufficient medication and having good emergency systems so their families knew how they were and where they were. The health department and its partners worked around the clock for the last week. We still have some folks closing down the convention center where the last patient will be going to safety. And that was really a joy to stand up along with the Department of Health and Hospitals and the HHS. Secretary Greenstein and his team at DHH have been great partners throughout this. I want to thank them. They actually embedded a staff person with our team here in the New Orleans EOC, which improved communication tremendously, and HHS actually sent an assistant secretary to visit us to be certain we had everything that we needed on the ground. All of this effort in terms of transporting people to dialysis and assuring that they had access to medical special needs shelters and the information they needed would not have been possible without all the great work of the men and women of the health department. I do want to call out especially Charlotte Parent, who's the deputy director, and Patrice Williams and Ayame Dinkler and Mr. Glenn Cousins, who I believe have not slept for just about 8 days, and so I hope I don't see them for a couple. They have really given of themselves to this city. And Mr. Tony Crawford and his team were our transport service, and they also worked extremely hard for days, never said no, always with a smile, and brought back information as eyes and ears on the ground to help us know where there was more need. As the mayor said, we're always looking for ways to do better next time. And what I saw out there in the field, sometimes door to door, sometimes speaking to people on the streets, was that we have an opportunity as a community to do better by the elderly and the disabled. And so we will be working in earnest to make certain that we are not only helping them be more emergency prepared, but more prepared and have better quality of life every day. Thank you.
I would like to thank the 345 incredible men and women of the Surgeon Water Board of New Orleans. Our team was in 24 drainage pump stations, 83 wastewater pump and lift stations, 2 water purification plants, 2 wastewater plants. We served 13 underpass stations. We also operated 2 power generation and distribution services in which we generate enough power to power the city of Lafayette on a daily basis, all encased in underground transmission cables. So I want to thank the men and women of the Surgeon Water Board for their incredible dedication, their can-do spirit, and their dedication to the citizens of New Orleans. We're supplying water to Entergy. We're supplying water to the National Guard. We're supplying wastewater services to anyone who needs it, and we are prepared to deliver those services to our neighbors to the north, to the south, to the east, and the west, and we're prepared to deliver those services as needed. And, and we've been delivering water to Plaquemine Parish for probably 3.5 weeks now. You know, Sturgeon Water Board is a regional water utility, and we provide water to Plaquemine on a daily basis. We sell it. We sell it on a daily basis, and we install, with the mayor's leadership, a pipeline to help Plaquemine with the saltwater intrusion, which is a non-issue for our community today. We will continue to serve Plaquemine Parish. Thank you.
Mike Stack, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
So I'd like to start by thanking the mayor and his whole team for inviting the Corps of Engineers to be a partner with him as we responded to this hurricane. It truly has been a good response. Just a couple points on the hurricane system. The hurricane system, as the mayor touched on, did perform as designed. It was able to successfully defend against the impacts of Isaac. We did close all the major structures in the hurricane system, both on the east and west banks, some of them for the first time, including the West Closure Complex and IHC surge barrier out in New Orleans East. At the surge barrier, we saw over 13 feet of surge on the face of the barrier. The interior walls along IHC are to elevation 11. So the interior of IHC would most definitely have been a problem without the surge barrier. So the surge barrier did prove its worth for this event. Currently, we're in the field with teams on the ground doing damage assessments on the system to see what's wrong with it so we can get it repaired for the next event. The initial reports are good. The system is resilient. It is not suffering any major damage, and we'll continue to do those assessments and do any repairs necessary to have it ready for the next event. Thank you.
Mike Byrne, FEMA.
Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you for the partnership you've established between ourselves and the state on this disaster. It's really making a difference in our work. As the mayor mentioned earlier, in Orleans we've had over 35,000 applications, and we've issued over $1 million in individual assistance has been approved. Statewide, though, just quickly, over 117,000 citizens of the state of Louisiana have applied for assistance. We're moving quickly, and we're also, because of the great partnership we have, we've been able to move out quickly on restoring for the funding for the debris and for the emergency services. We have 4 expedited PWs, project worksheets that total over $30 million that are in process so that we can get this moving and get this done. We're committed to continue to work with you, and if I can just address the citizens that may have been impacted by the storm and mention, if you would like to apply for FEMA assistance, please call the following number: 1-800-621-3362. I'll say it again: 1-800-621-3362. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor of Infrastructure, Cedric Green.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank my team, which is extensive. It's public works, it's property management, it's capital projects, it's housing. They all came together, and immediately after the storm, were able to be dispatched across the city and access our facilities as they continue to do to determine damage and begin to fix things so we could get things back in operational. The day the mayor said he wanted all of our public facilities open, they were open. And that's because people stayed here day and night to make sure that that happened. Some of the unusual incidents. Youth Study Center. I had to send people out in the middle of the night to make sure it was operational. All they did was can do and went and did it. And same thing with Sturgeon Water Board and all the others. So I would tell you that we have quite a workforce here that has the capacity to do almost anything and everything. And the only thing that breaks their heart is when they have to go and fix something again. And that's where we're now. At Wesley Barrow, we knocked the fence down. We have to go fix it again. IMS Light, we have to go fix it again. Street lights, we have to go fix it again. But we're doing it, and you'll find all the traffic signals operational by Friday at close of business. Thank you.
Justin Augustine with RTA.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank you for your untiring leadership and your committed focus to ensure that we all are on task and on target. Also, I'd like to thank your city departments for assisting the Regional Transit Authority for allowing us to do a job that we had to do for you. I'd like to thank the Federal Transit Administration, the Louisiana Department of Transportation, and more importantly, the 463 employees of Veolia and the Regional Transit Authority who worked tirelessly to ensure that the public transportation system was back on the street as quickly as possible We have a very iconic system out there, being our historic streetcar services. They are running today, and we're very proud of that. And I also would like to say this. I want to thank Parsons Brinkerhoff and our contractor, Archer Weston, for securing our construction site on Loyola. But it doesn't mean we're going to miss our deadline, Mr. Mayor. We're going to stay on target. We are not going to miss our deadline, Mr. Mayor. We're going to power up St. Charles first thing in the morning, and we'll be rolling tomorrow. 6 a.m. in the morning.
Deputy Mayor of Operations, Michelle Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While many of our colleagues are winding down and returning to normal operations, our teams are really leaning forward and working to make sure that we clean up all the debris and help our residents transition back to complete normalcy. Since last Thursday, over the past 7 days, as the mayor said, we've had more than 500 individuals that have been out in crews that have done everything from cut leaners and hangers to cut large trees that were obstructing roadways, to clearing those roadways so that cars could pass, to clearing the debris behind those. We are in the midst of our first pass of debris clearing. We are also continuing to respond to 311 calls for tree service. Those continue to call, so we are at 972 of those so far, of which we have serviced more than 600. We continue to cut leaners and hangers. There were more than 600 of those that we identified in our initial inspections, and we're about halfway through going and taking those out to remove those hazards. We have resumed grass cutting in many areas, particularly with our contractors and some of our parks. We are proud to share that today we reopened Armstrong Park as well as the Joseph M. Bartholomew Senior Municipal Golf Course. We are working diligently to get the parks prepared for our kids who play football. We know there's been an interruption in the Nord football season, and that many of our kids are wanting to get back out onto the football field, so we are making those a priority. But our number one priority is our major corridors and our residential streets. We have more than 50 crews that are out today. We've divided the city into 60 zones. We have more than 50 crews that are out today going street by street and working to remove all of the debris. We will make multiple passes, because we know that some people are still hiring their contractors if you got a big tree in the backyard or bringing your debris out. Some of you are just returning and cleaning out your refrigerators. So if we missed you on the first pass, we are coming again. We will continue to work until all of the debris is removed. Our household residential sanitation collection is about a day to a day and a half behind schedule. So if you were scheduled to have a pickup and they have not yet come, please leave your garbage out there. If you have had your first pass, please bring your cans back in and put them back out when it's time for your regular collection day. It is our expectation that by Sunday evening we will be completely caught up and every resident would have had 2 passes of household collection this week. We are working aggressively to make it happen faster than that. We have our contractors have brought in additional staff and additional equipment. They're working 16-hour days. And if you have any concerns or challenges, we ask that you call 311 as we are still responding to those. I would like to thank Ann McDonald, our Director of Parks and Parkways, Cynthia Sylvain-Lear, our Director of Sanitation, for the tireless work that they have done. And I particularly would like to thank their staffs who have been working 16, 18-hour days to make it happen. Our partners, Kurt Weigel and Richard McCall from the Downtown Development District, who have been amazing at helping us get the downtown area clean, to Marcia St. Martin from the Sewage and Water Board, who has provided crews and staff, as well as Dr. Claudia Regal from Mosquito and Termite Control, who has provided staff and equipment for us. I'd like to thank in advance Sheriff Guzman, who we understand is going to be providing inmates to help us clean some of our major corridors. To Colonel Donnelly, Colonel Thibodeau, and Chief Simmons from the Louisiana National Guard. We couldn't have done it without you, and we appreciate the work that you're doing out in Venetian Isles and in some of our major corridors. This has absolutely been a team effort. It will continue to be a team effort. We will put every resource that we have available to us on this until the city is clean and life has returned to normal. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Members of the council, thank you. All of the city's administration, it has been just a pleasure working with you throughout this storm. As you know, we've had a tough run, and we always strive to improve. I want you to know that our commitment to the city is that we are going to be making ourselves available to meet with civic associations, business associations, and anyone across the city who would like to meet with us face-to-face to talk about how we can improve communications during events such as these. In an effort to start doing that right now, I'd like to provide you with some information. As of today, we are down to 1,100 customers that are still out of power in the city of New Orleans. Those customers are expected to be restored by the evening. It's important to note that we are still experiencing the residual effects of Hurricane Isaac. Customers can expect to experience intermittent outages 2 to 4 hours in duration as the power system begins to operate under full load. There was an outage that occurred last night. We had Mid-City, Treme, and members of Central City who experienced that outage. Those are the type of things that I'm talking about. We had another cable failure this morning, again in the Mid-City area, affecting 2,000 customers. Smaller outages have occurred across the city as tree limbs break away and fall on the power lines. Again, we are working to restore these outages as quickly and as safely as possible. If this happens, please call us immediately at 1-800-9-OUTAGE. Also, if you notice that your neighbors are restored and you may be one of just several people or the only person on your block who still doesn't have power, please give us a call at 1-800-9-OUTAGE. At the storm's peak, we had over 160,000 customers out of power. That's 85% of Orleans Parish. Power restoration and utility work in general is difficult. It's also dangerous. Please know that we were working as quickly as possible while keeping the safety of our employees and all of the crews that came in from out of town in mind. In terms of crews, we had more than 2,000 restoration workers working in the city of New Orleans, and over 5,000 restoration workers came in through New Orleans. You may have seen some of these workers. They were going to Jefferson Parish, to St. Bernard, to Plaquemines, to St. Charles, and they staged in the east. That was a checkpoint. They were fueled there. In some cases, they parked their trucks, and we put them in hotels so they could rest and then start work the next morning. Please know that some of these trucks were also being loaded with material and ice and water so that our crews could go out and work safely. Some of these crews had also worked all night and were getting their rest time. With restoration virtually complete in New Orleans, we are beginning to release some of the out-of-town crews. You will see some of these marshaling activities occurring across the city as the crews begin to line up and to convoy home. Please be aware that they're going to need a little bit of space when they're getting on the highway. Please, as the mayor mentioned, thank them, wave to them, and express our appreciation because they've come from a long way to help us. I just want to add in closing that, again, we always strive for improvement. We have heard your concerns, and we'll make ourselves available to the community at face-to-face meetings. We are committed to working together to improve communications. I'm proud of and want to publicly thank all the employees and all of the out-of-town crews that helped to make this restoration possible. They worked tirelessly and safely. Thank you, and God bless.
Elvin Thibodeau, Cox Community.
First, I want to say that it's a privilege to service this community with Cox, and with that privilege takes a lot of responsibility. And what I would like to share with you is what we've done over the last few days. With that, I also want to thank the Entergy crews for assisting us in a lot of the restorations that took place over the last few days. On Friday, of August 24th, a week ago, we actually Gulf Coast instituted a business continuity plan. The operations in preparation for Hurricane Isaac. The activation put our regional red teams on standby from the Panhandle of Florida all the way down to actually Lafayette. We executed phase 1 of our preparations on August 26th and began mobilizing our assets to prepare for what we believe was going to be some service outages. On August 27th, we implemented phase 2, which with our preparations including verifying our operational checklists and also the network resiliency and for anticipation of conditions we were saving. Due to unsafe conditions for our employees, phase 3 was activated on August 28th, and the retail operations were actually secured and resumed retail operations on August 31st. Our network servicing the greater New Orleans area remained active until our secondary energy sources were exhausted. However, today, I'm happy to report that as of this morning or noon, your network is 98% active and fully operational, and we're going to, for the businesses of the families of South Louisiana. In good weather or bad weather, Cox Communications strives to be the most trusted provider of communications and entertainment services in America. Any questions?
Jared Gillen, Southeast Flood Protection Authority, and then Susan McClay, Flood Protection Authority West.
On behalf of the Southeast Louisiana Flood Protection Authority East, I'd like to report that the perimeter levee system performed as designed. Our folks closed over 140 floodgates in a 36-hour period. We were able to go back and open those as the water receded and as it was allowed. We had over 6,500 man hours, no accidents, which is always really, really good. We were able to send a crew down to help breach some of the levees down in Braithwaite. We also got a request from Lafitte. We sent, Orleans Levee District sent 8,500 sandbags and 93,000-pound sandbags to help with their flood fight efforts. We were also in the storm able to show off some of our new technologies. We have a levee information management system that we employed. Also some mass text went out when we were closing the surge barriers in Bayou Bienvenue. And also we were able to enact and open our brand new safe house where we housed and fed 110 of our employees, some of the Southeast Authority folks, some of the Corps embeds, and some of the National Guard. So all was very successful.
Like my counterpart on the East Bank, I'm pleased to report that the West Bank system also failed according to, or worked according to plan. Thanks, Jackie. Yeah. No, that's okay. Jackie and Kristen, council persons, you can sleep soundly on the West Bank. Anyway, it all worked according to plan. Our personnel did a tremendous job. We have roughly 50 people over there that were keeping all of us safe and dry. They closed over 124 gates. That was primarily secondary, by the way, line of defense. The West Bank is blessed to have a secondary system, and our primary system, which includes the Western Closure Complex, there are 4 gates affiliated with our primary line. They were all closed. They all worked according to plan. And as a matter of fact, we also were able to help Lafitte and Plaquemines Parish. We've been sending thousands of little and large sandbags. We've been feeding the folks in Lafitte now for several days, and we will continue to do so. Our command center was operational 24/7 for about a week. The good news also is the damage assessment, it's minimal. So there's very little damage, and we'll be able to correct that very quickly. So overall, my fellow citizens on the West Bank, you can sleep peacefully now. After almost 50 years, our holes are finally closed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for discussing the importance of mosquito control. This is very important. I'd like to let everyone know that we are fully operational. We have 32 employees. They're all back. I would especially like to thank our pilot, whose apartment was flooded, but right now he's getting our airplane ready to loaded and getting ready to spray. Hopefully the weather will cooperate with us today. You know, typically after a hurricane, it takes about 7 days or so for the mosquitoes to hatch off from the marsh. So we're right on schedule. Our light traps throughout the cities have started picking up activity. We did start spraying last night, and you will see our trucks and our airplanes spraying. So if you do see a low-flying airplane, please do not get alarmed. It is us, okay, because we do get those calls, so very important. If